Good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful morning here at the Lechem Food Garden, Lechem Foundation Food Garden, and on the homestead. Today is tree planting day, as well as planting some shrubs next to the trees. So we hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Just showing you the update or the progress on our flower bed here. This layer of mulch has been wonderful. If we just scratch the surface away, we get to fairly moist soil here. So that means the soil is not drying out, and that is the best chance of germination for the seeds. So you'll see some lovely growth there. Everywhere along this bed you'll find seeds that have germinated. We would like to plant our raspberries and our blackberries and some speckworm on either side of each tree. And if you're like me, you want things to be precise. But what to do if you don't have a measuring tape? Because we want these shrubs that we're planting now to be the same distance from each tree. So I found this stick that I'm going to use as a measuring stick. And a great way to measure something if you don't have a tape measure is simply using the distance between your thumb, the tip of your thumb, and the tip of your middle finger. So from the tip of my thumb to the tip of my middle finger, if I stretch those two fingers along the stick, that is approximately 20 centimeters. So if I want to know what's the length of the stick, I'm just going to count how many 20 centimeters I can fit on the stick. So I'm going to walk my fingers like a worm. So that's 20 centimeters, that's 40, that's 60, that's 80, that's 1 meters, and that's almost 120. So I know that the length of this stick is almost 1.2 meters long. I did bring a tape measure just to show that this is true. Let's see, guys, what have we got here? 118 centimeters or 1.18 meters. So, I hope that this helps you with your next project. If you're in the shop browsing and you're not sure of the size of something, use this as your guide. This is approximately 20 centimeters. So we're going to take our stick, simply put it against the one end, put it against the tree, and we're going to plant our shrubs then at the other end of the stick. And that way we know every shrub we're planting, it's approximately 1.2 meters away from the tree. The speckworm, we've just taken these cuttings and we're simply going to stick it in the ground. It is extremely hardy and it grows very easily. You can even take a cutting, stick it in water on a windowsill in a container, and it will form roots which you can then transplant. So all of the plants that we've taken the cuttings from were also transplants at some point, and we're just going to stick it in the ground, cover it with mulch around the plant, start watering, make sure the soil stays moist for a while, and it will grow roots very quickly. So one way to plant is to keep the original soil that you have and just put a thick layer of compost on top of that, preferably an organic compost. You have two options. You could plant straight into that, so thick layer, 15 centimeter layer of compost on top of the original soil, and just plant straight into the compost. Over time, that compost and life in the soil will move down into the lower parts, the original soil parts, as you're adding more organic matter. The second option would be to take some manure from your cows or even horse stables, with the straw bedding and the manure and the urine mixed in together. That could be worked into your soil. So perhaps again putting it down as a layer and then taking your garden fork and just working that into the soil before you start planting. One thing to watch out for is that we don't use a strong manure-based compost that will burn the roots of our plants. You'll see here in the pathways we've left the original soil and we've simply dumped a 15 centimeter layer of compost on top of that to form our beds.
We're repurposing these pots, and we're going to plant some speckworm in here, propagate them again so we can put them in God's garden.
At 29 and I find myself wondering what did happen to the last 10. I ran away with my life, fast forward, never turn back again. It's kind of funny that the more we pass time, the more we need to set the rewind. And 19 was the year I had to leave you, but now I'm seeing all the signs. Is this really happening? I can't believe it's true. I'm just as surprised as you.
Okay guys, you never have too many plants, speckworms, so we found more recyclable pots, so we're going to plant some more speckworms for our garden. Now that we've planted the speckworms in the pots, I'd like to put some mulch around them to keep the moisture in the pots so they don't dry out too fast. So we have here a bit of mulch. We went and was demonstrated a wood chipper, and this is what came out of the machine. Beautiful mulch. So I'm going to just take this and just put it around our plants, just like that. It's almost like a nice little blanket to keep them warm and keep the moisture in, and these speck plants are going to be very happy.
Guys, I've been watering the pots for a while now. As you can see, it looks really moist at the top. And that's sometimes that's often the mistake we make. We water based on what we see above the soil, and that's not a true reflection always of what is happening beneath the soil, especially when you're starting out with a potting mix or with a compost. We're planting in here for the very first time, so the compost we have here has not been watered for quite some time, And sometimes that makes soil hydrophilic, meaning it doesn't like water, it doesn't actually absorb the water. So I'm just going to switch this off for a moment, and I'm going to show you. It looks wet, the surface is wet, but if I start scratching away, look immediately underneath the surface of the soil, you have dryness again. Look at that. So we cannot water our plants based on what we see. The fact that you see moisture at the top doesn't necessarily mean that beneath the surface of the soil it is also moist. So best is to put a mulch on top, water a few times for the first few days, maybe 2 or 3 times in the day until the soil is saturated. And then because you have mulch on top, it's not going to dry out again from one watering to the next. So make sure, if you're not sure whether your soil is properly watered, you can do the finger test. We're going to stick our finger in the soil and we're going to see there's dryness, and it looks very different beneath the surface of the soil opposed to what we see here. Looks can definitely be deceiving when it comes to watering in a garden. Unfortunately, we covered up the tree holes before we could show you the whole process. So I'll briefly explain what we've done, but we will show some footage next week because we have 2 more rows that we need to dig. I think about 7 trees that still need to find space in the first phase of this garden. So we will show you. But what we've done essentially is to dig a hole that is 1 meter wide by 1 meter long by 1 meter deep. That's a whole cube of soil that we've removed. And then once we do that, we put the soil to one side as we take it out of the hole, and then we layer it. It's like a lasagna with soil. We put down compost, a layer of compost, we put a layer of soil, we add soil amendments, and then we repeat that process. Compost, soil, soil amendments. And it doesn't really matter the order in which you layer it. We take our spade after doing a trio of layers. We just take the spade and turn it around to mix what we've added to the hole thus far. So we fill the hole up again, which seems so counterintuitive. We've just dug the hole, why would we fill it up? But we want to give our trees the best possible chance of growing as quickly as possible. So if we don't do that and we just dig a hole that's the size of the root mass, that the tree or the roots will start growing and they'll push against the old, hard, compacted soil very quickly. And then it's got to spend more energy on trying to grow more roots through the hard soil, that it stunts the growth of the tree, or at least it slows down the growth because it doesn't have enough energy to grow above the ground as well and create fruit. Yeah. So let me just show you here what you see here. There was a meter wide by a meter deep hole right here, and we've now filled it up again back to the top layer of this whole bed. So this bed has a certain level, and we fill the hole back up to the level of this whole of the bed. Now what we do next, because the the soil in this area is now soft, we just take a small garden fork, or I use my hands just to create a hole to fit our tree roots into. So you'll notice that the plastic is still on. This was just to test the depth. Craig's now going to take this out, remove the plastic, add a little bit of soil amendment, and then we'll plant the tree. Go for it.
I've just put in some amendments for the tree. I put a little bit of water in, mix everything together, so like a porridge consistency, and then I put the root ball on top of it, and it gives us a good kickstart with that moisture down at the bottom. Bye guys, have a good evening. We'll see you next time. Keep well.